What is the mark of the beast? Is it a barcode or implantable chip or some kind of face scanning AI technology? Stay tuned as we look at the prophecy and we will see exactly what the mark of the beast really is and what we can do to avoid receiving the mark. The book of Revelation tells us what will happen in the last days of Earth's history, the final crisis that is soon to take the world by surprise, as two beast powers unite to set up a false religious system and enforce worship on a worldwide scale, and when every person on earth will be forced to make a decision, whether to obey God and keep His commandments, or to take the mark of the beast. So who are these beasts, and what is the mark of the beast? These are symbols of real-life events that will happen in the near future, so it is critical that we understand what they mean. To know what the mark of the beast is, we first have to know who the beast is, and the Bible doesn't leave us guessing. We are told in Daniel chapter 7 that a beast represents a kingdom in Bible prophecy, and as I showed in my video Antichrist Revealed, the four beasts of Daniel 7 and the four metals on the image in Daniel 2 represent the same four successive kingdoms: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome. The fourth beast of Daniel 7 represents the fourth kingdom, the Roman Empire, and the little horn power, the Antichrist, which came up out of the Roman Empire, is a clear illustration of the Roman Catholic Church, which strikingly fulfilled every single one of the criteria given in the prophecy. And this is the same power as the first beast described in Revelation 13. They both speak blasphemous words against God. They both make war with the saints, the Bible-believing Christians. They both reign over 10 kings, which arose at the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century. They become more powerful than all the other nations, and they both reign for the same prophetic time period. This time period is referred to as a time times in half a time, 42 months, and 1260 days. Ezekiel 4 tells us to take a day for a year in biblical prophecy, letting us know that the reign of the beast was to be for a period of 1260 literal years. And the papacy received political power in 538 to persecute dissenters, and this lasted for exactly 1260 years, until Napoleon abolished the Papal States in 1798, when its dominance finally came to an end. So the first beast represents the papacy, as all Protestants once recognized. Now let's identify the second beast of Revelation 13. First, let's look at the time period that he was to appear on the scene in relation to the first beast. We are told of the deadly wound that the papacy received in 1798. He that leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He that kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And immediately after that we are told that the second beast had already made his appearance at the same time that the first beast is seen receiving the deadly wound in 1798. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. So this nation was to appear on the scene at the close of the 1260-year period of papal rule, a little before the year 1798. Next, we see that the second beast is describing a superpower. Its military and economic might is clearly seen. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And we also see that the second beast is an economic powerhouse which controls buying and selling on a worldwide scale. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And just based on these points, it is very clear which nation is being described in the prophecy. It was founded in 1776, shortly before the papacy received the deadly wound in 1798, and it is the United States of America, the greatest and most powerful nation the world has ever seen, a bastion of Protestantism, where people could worship according to the dictates of their own conscience, free from the civil and religious tyranny that had plagued Europe for centuries. The US has the largest economy in the world, and it dominates the financial system, setting trends which the whole world follows, and having more military force and political clout than all the other nations combined. And the United States was identified as the second beast of Revelation 13 as early as the 1850s, long before the US became a superpower. The first person on record to identify the US as the second beast of Revelation 13 was J.N. Andrews as early as 1851. Others soon followed suit, such as John Loughborough, who wrote in 1855. We learn by the prophecy that when the wound is given to the first beast, the second has already made a start and is seen coming up. We find no place to locate it except in these United States, which did then exist as an independent republican government, or in the language of the prophecy, another beast. In fact, John Wesley, writing in 1754, a little over 20 years before the founding of the United States, made this incredible prediction about the soon appearance of this superpower. He comes to confirm the kingdom of the first beast, coming up, after the other had long exercised his authority. But he is not yet come, though he cannot be far off, for he is to appear at the end of the 42 months of the first beast. The prophecy also indicates where the second beast was to arise. The first beast is shown coming up out of the sea, and we are told that this represents a populated part of the world. The waters which you saw are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. The second beast, on the other hand, is seen coming up out of the earth, indicating that it was to arise in an unpopulated part of the world. And this principle was also recognized by the Protestant reformers long before the rise of the United States. Joseph Mead, writing in 1627, said, "But he sees him, the second beast, coming up out of the earth, that is, not as that former out of the sea or dominions of the world, begotten not by the assembly of armies or people contending by war, but springing up secretly and without noise, like herbs and plants growing up out of the earth." And this perfectly describes the rise of the United States. The United States of America sprang into nationhood out of a continental wilderness around 1776. The seemingly open, unhindered land of the New World offered tremendous opportunity to people throughout Europe, whose prospects were often determined by class discrimination and religious instability. The second beast was also to be a refuge for the oppressed, where God's people would flee during the 1260 years of papal persecution, as the earth symbolizes a place of shelter provided by God for His people. And to the woman, speaking of God's church, were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And it was understood by the Protestant reformers that the earth symbolized a place of refuge. But in relief of the church's pressures and persecutions, her Lord gave charge unto His handmaid the earth, to comfort, help, and succor His spouse. So here the earth was commanded to reach forth her helping hand and to take in and harbor the Lord's exiles. And the United States was the primary place of refuge for the oppressed all over the world. Protestants were in search of a place in which they could escape the control of the Catholic religion. The North American continent was invaded and settled by Protestants from Europe, who were experiencing various levels of persecution in their European countries. And prophecy tells us that although this country was initially to be a bastion of Protestantism and a protector of religious liberty, it would eventually violate its own principles and enforce religious worship. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And what is the image of the beast? It is a union of church and state, the church dictating to the state which laws to enforce. The papal beast we have already seen was a church clothed with civil authority, having power to put to death heretics. We have seen by verse 12 that the two-horned beast is to exercise all the power of the first beast. A church or ecclesiastical body is again to have power to pass decrees to put the saints to death. So the United States will make an image to the papal beast by uniting church and state, which tells us that church and state were originally to be separated at the country's founding. And the US Constitution safeguards civil and religious liberty for all. The First Amendment to the US Constitution reads, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof." James Madison, the principal author of the Constitution, gave the reason for the Religious Freedom Clause. The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe in blood for centuries. And the wall of separation was built on Jesus' teaching, to render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. With respect to the two horns on the second beast, horns in some cases in the Old Testament are said to symbolize power, and it is believed by some that these two horns represent the civil and religious liberty of the United States, as this is what lies behind the great power of that nation, which allowed it to prosper above all others. But church and state will once again join hands as the United States causes the whole world to worship according to Catholic tradition, contrary to the law of God. And when considering the mark of the beast, it is important to recognize that the conflict between Christ and Satan from the very beginning has been over worship. Adam and Eve fell to Satan's temptations and came under the power of sin as they broke God's commandment. In Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the fiery furnace for refusing to break the second commandment and bow down to idols. And Satan himself tempted Christ, offering him all the kingdoms of the world if he would only bow down and worship him. And similarly, the central theme in the last days will be over worship, a conflict between the commandments of God and the commandments of men. And we are told that the mark of the beast is to be received on the hand or on the forehead. That this is not a literal mark is evident by God's command to keep His law on the hand and on the forehead. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. The sign between the eyes or on the forehead signifies an understanding of God's law, and a sign on the hand is the outward act of conformity to His law. In the same way, receiving the mark of the beast on the forehead means being deceived by the papal system into accepting her authority over God's law. We have seen that the first beast of Revelation 13 is the papacy, and the mark of the beast can only be a sign of Catholic worship, a commandment of the Roman Church which is contrary to the law of God. Daniel foretold that the papacy would think to change times and laws, and the Roman Church has fulfilled this prophecy to the letter, having changed the very day of worship from Saturday to Sunday, and they even claim this change as a mark of their authority, letting us know what the mark of the beast is. Of course, the Catholic Church claims that the change from Saturday to Sunday was her act, and the act is a mark of her ecclesiastical authority in religious things. Now, many reasons are given today for the Sunday tradition, but the truth is that it originates with the Roman Catholic Church, who itself admits that Sunday worship is unbiblical. It is well to remind the Presbyterians, the Baptists, the Methodists, and all other Christians that the Bible does not support them anywhere in their observance of Sunday. Sunday is an institution of the Roman Catholic Church, and those who observe the day observe a commandment of the Catholic Church. So the beast's power openly sets tradition above the Word of God, and it tells us that Sunday is its mark of authority. So Sunday will be the mark of the beast once it is enforced by law. As J. N. Andrews notes, what is this mark of the beast? We understand it as an institution of the papacy, enforced by Protestantism. It is found in a weekly Sabbath which the man of sin has placed in the stead of the Sabbath of the Fourth Commandment. There is no other papal institution that directly sets aside one of the 10 Commandments that the whole Protestant world observes. And the sign of God's people in the last days will be the observance of the true Sabbath, which was made at Creation Week, before sin even entered the world. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So we see that the Sabbath was hallowed at creation, and the Bible affirms that the Sabbath is a sign between God and His people. I also gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between them and me, that they might know that I am the Lord who sanctifies them. We are told of the miracles which the second beast will perform in order to deceive the whole world to accept the mark of the beast. And he does great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceives them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had a wound by a sword and did live. The fire from heaven is an allusion to that fire which came down in the days of Elijah, to convince the unbelievers of the power and identity of the God of Israel. But considering the spiritual nature of the prophetic symbols, it is most likely that this is not a literal fire, but a deceptive spiritual movement accompanied by miracles. And Revelation 16 tells us that these miracles are done by the spirits of devils, as the papacy, the United States, and the evil spirits combine forces to besiege God's people. Whatever these miracles will be, they will be framed with the purpose of deceiving the masses to accept the false Sabbath and to transgress the law of God. The famines, wars, and diseases foretold in Scripture will likely play a part in fueling the push to legislate religion and to return to a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. All of this will lead to a false religious revival. There will be a great conflict between true and false worship, as Catholics and Protestants unite to fight back against the secular agenda and to enforce Sunday worship. As the ecumenical agenda escalates and the final crisis approaches, the wall of separation between church and state will come crashing down, as the forces of darkness work behind the scenes to bring about the final conflict. And this will result in the persecution of God's commandment-keeping people, as the devil wages his final assault against the saints, in a repeat of what happened in the Dark Ages. Finally, we see the unclean spirits preparing for the great conflict. We see in America the preparation for a universal Sunday law. We see the papal power aroused to assert that the Pope is infallible and to claim universal dominion over the kingdoms of the world. We hear the warning voice of the third angel. Let us heed the warnings given and share the truth so clearly revealed in God's Word. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Check out the other videos on my channel. Like, share and subscribe, and thanks for watching.